Imagine a world where Vikings wore horned helmets, Napoleon was a tiny tyrant, and Einstein flunked math. That's the world of historical myths. We've some great myths to uncover for the truth. Hold on a minute. Before we start, don't forget to hit that like button if you want more videos. And if you want to see more mind-blowing historical content and facts to impress your friends in the pub, be sure to subscribe to my channel and click the notification bell so you don't miss any uploads. Oh, and don't forget to share this video with your friends. Let's spread the truth and challenge those historical myths together. Let's dive into some crazy historical myths that we've all been believing and see if we can debunk them once and for all. I think we've all been there. We learn something in school, or we read it in a book, and we just assume it's true. But the thing is, history is full of myths and misconceptions that have been passed down for generations, and it's time to set the record straight. When we think about history, we often think of it as a series of facts, dates, events, people, and places. But the truth is, history is also about interpretation, and sometimes that interpretation can be influenced by bias, politics, or even just a lack of understanding. This can lead to misinformation, and misinformation can be incredibly harmful. It can shape our perceptions of the world, it can influence our decisions, and it can even affect our relationships with one another. Another myth is that the ancient Egyptians were all dark-skinned Africans. While it's true that ancient Egypt was a multiracial society, the idea that they were all dark-skinned is just not supported by the evidence. In fact, many depictions of ancient Egyptians show them with lighter skin tones, and some even show them with blue eyes. When we believe these myths without questioning them, we're not only misunderstanding history, but we're also ignoring the real stories of the people who lived through these events. We're ignoring the struggles, the triumphs, and the contributions of people who have been marginalized or erased from history. Let's take, for example, the myth that the ancient Greeks were the founders of democracy. While it's true that the ancient Greeks did experiment with democracy, the idea that they were the founders is just not true. In fact, there were democratic systems in place in ancient Mesopotamia, Egypt, and even Africa long before the Greeks. By believing this myth, we're not only ignoring the achievements of other cultures, but we're also ignoring the fact that democracy has been a long and complex process that's still evolving today. Now, for a myth that really flips the script on who invented what, did you know that some people claim the ancient Chinese invented the steam engine? I know, we usually associate the steam engine with those brilliant minds in the West. And it's true, figures like James Watt and George Stephenson were absolute game changers when it came to harnessing the power of steam. Watt made crucial improvements to early steam engines, and Stephenson gave us the steam locomotive that revolutionized travel. But long before these innovators, way back in the 1st century AD, a Greek inventor named Hero of Alexandria created a device called the aeolipile. It used steam to spin a sphere, demonstrating the potential of steam power. While it wasn't used for practical purposes like later engines, it shows that the concept of using steam for power was explored in ancient Greece centuries before it took off in the West. This myth about the steam engine highlights just how interconnected the world has always been. Ideas and inventions have traveled across continents for centuries, influencing and inspiring each other. It's a reminder that history is a global story, and we need to look beyond a Eurocentric perspective to truly understand it. Let's talk Vikings! Ever pictured them with those fierce horned helmets ready to raid and pillage? Turns out that's a big ol' myth. Archaeologists have never found a single Viking helmet with horns. So where did this idea come from? We can thank the operas of Richard Wagner for this one. His epic portrayals of Norse mythology in the 19th century popularized the image of the horned Viking, and it's stuck in our imaginations ever since. The real Vikings were fearsome enough without the extra headwear, don't you think? Now, let's travel to 18th century France. Picture this. Marie Antoinette, the Queen, hears her people are starving with no bread. Her response, "Let them eat cake." A classic line, but did she really say it? Nope. This quote has been floating around for centuries. But there's zero evidence Marie Antoinette ever uttered these words. In fact, the phrase first appeared in Rousseau's Confessions, written when Marie Antoinette was just a child. So, while it makes for a good story, it's simply not true. Poor Marie Antoinette, forever remembered for something she probably never said. Speaking of historical figures getting a bad rap, what about Napoleon? Short, right? Wrong. Napoleon Bonaparte was actually of average height for his time. This myth likely arose from some clever British propaganda during the Napoleonic Wars. They loved portraying him as a tiny, power-hungry tyrant. But in reality, he was about 5'6", which was pretty average for a Frenchman in the late 18th century. Shows how powerful propaganda can be, doesn't it? Now for a myth about a genius, Albert Einstein. We all know him as the brilliant physicist who revolutionized our understanding of the universe. But did you know there's a rumor he failed math in school? Totally false. Einstein was actually a top student who excelled in math and physics from a young age. He even mastered calculus before he was 15. So if you're struggling with math, don't worry, you're in good company. Even Einstein had to work at it. Finally, let's go to space. Ever heard that the Great Wall of China is the only man-made structure visible from space? It's a popular belief, but it's just not true. While the Great Wall is certainly impressive, astronauts can see plenty of other things from orbit, like cities, highways, and even airports. So while the Great Wall is a wonder of the world, it's not quite as unique in space as we might think. So there you have it. Historical myths busted. It just goes to show that we should always be curious and question what we think we know. History is full of surprises. Thank you for watching. Let's dive into some crazy historical myths that we've all been believing and see if we can debunk them once and for all. I think we've all been there. We learn something in school, or we read it in a book, and we just assume it's true. But the thing is, history is full of myths and misconceptions that have been passed down for generations. And it's time to set the record straight. When we think about history, we often think of it as a series of facts, dates, events, people, and places. But the truth is, history is also about interpretation.